Welcome, subscribers. We are talking to Michael Tsarion, and I would like to begin today to spend a little time speaking about Theosophy and its founder, Helena Blavatsky. I myself have not read that much about Theosophy, but I have read enough to understand that there are some very interesting ideas and concepts expressed in Theosophy. And there is also a lot of controversy, of course, and I know that Michael have kind of brushed on these topics in his talks. And when I myself began reading a lot about the New Age and the conspiracies around that, I pretty early bumped up against the work of Blavatsky, and a lot of researchers are, kind of giving her a bad rap, so to speak. But and I have a few ideas why that might be. But let me ask you, Michael, why is it? Do you think that she and her work has gotten, attacked so much?
Because people haven't read her work.
That's a good answer.
Anyway, it's nice to get a chance to talk with you about this because, it is a tangled web. There's no doubt about it that the Theosophical Society is a completely different creature after, Blavatsky died.
Yeah.
It became a different creature after Krishnamurti, went his own way, and he wouldn't buy into the whole, orthodoxy of it.
Yeah.
So it changed again, and people didn't listen to Krishnaji when he tried to disband it. Of course, everyone who was it's just like anything that people are into for sort of a social point of view, or they're worshipping some guru. They didn't listen to what the man said. They didn't disband. They said, well, let him go his own way, and we'll just stay with what we've got.
Yeah.
So they stayed with the trappings, and the spiritual leaders had left. And this is what happens, when sort of you have Hamlet without the hero.
Yeah, the driving...
Kind of a book is Hamlet without Hamlet.
Yeah.
So the leaders go their own way because these are people who are vital and they're alive and they're into the true chi of it. They're in with the muse, and then that dries up, and then you have the edifice. You have this fossil that just persists and persists. And basically, what happened with Theosophy is what happens with a lot of groups. When the second and third, lieutenants took over, they did not have the direct connection to the muse. Because in life, it's a strange quirk of fate that the muse only works through the individual shaman.
Yeah.
This is just the way it is. In the tribe, you have crazy horse. Yeah, there's one crazy horse. There's one Buddha that sits under the tree. There's one Jesus on the cross.
Yeah.
There's one Odin. It's a very singular thing. There's only one Merlin. One Gandalf. It's a very much a singular thing.
Yeah.
And that person may then, out of the goodness and the virtue that is in them, expand that to create a circle of friends or a order, a sect, a group, because this is sometimes an extension of a person's own dharma.
Yeah.
And their own, vision. And that can be, it's not for us to comment on whether that should be done, because whatever guides a person, and especially in the Victorian era, there was a tremendous sense that, the world was changing. They were coming up to the end of the millennium in the 19th century, and people felt a lot of big changes. And remember, people didn't just sit watching TV all day. You had some of the greatest writers, some of the greatest occultists. People like Conan Doyle, the writer of Sherlock Holmes, was a member of the Order of the Golden Dawn.
Yeah, yeah.
You had W.B. Yeats. You had Walter Mackin. You had so many ordinary scholars and writers in the secular world, but they were becoming members of these secret societies and fraternities for the good of mankind.
That's very interesting. Yeah, because it feels like again, this was a point I was going to bring up, because there seems to be a kind of surge, at least in the Western esoteric movements, as you say, in the late 18th century and from there onwards, and as you say, many of these, I think, was started out on a really with good intentions in a lot of cases, but as always, it seems like these movements actually are being hijacked further down the road. Do you agree on that? Yeah.
And it's in two phases. One happens is when the person who's the real brains either passes away or becomes too much of a hermit. This is what happened with the Rajneesh group.
Yeah.
With Osho. It happens all across the board.
Yeah.
So if that person topples or they leave the game, then all the little lieutenants and the scurrying ants all then want to sort of compete for the control.
Yeah.
And it becomes this ridiculous thing. And the thing with Theosophy, particularly, is that it then started to become more of a political movement than it did a spiritual movement.
Yeah.
And the reason why I detest people who blame Blavatsky for the machinations of the Theosophical and Fabian Society are people who, for a start, have never read her work, and two, they do not understand that this woman spent her life trying to excise any type of political, social wrangling and maneuvering to contaminate the true spiritual essence of what she was saying. So you don't even have to be into her spirituality. You can like it or not like it.
Yeah.
But this woman was a spiritualist.
Yeah.
This is a woman who climbed out of her own window in Russia instead of getting married at 18 and walked to Tibet. Right? This is a person who left the tiny, microscopic, xenophobic, limited life that she was being promised as a young girl, and had a greater vision and took herself off and walked all the way from Russia to Tibet to find out the meaning of life.
Amazing.
Right there, when you hear that story, I'm interested. I want to know more about such a person who would want to do that.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is a person who then goes on to create an order. When she finally dies, the place is taken over by Annie Bessant and other people who were major political figures in England. And so their interest in taking the spiritual order, they have no spirit. So, of course, that's going to die a death. And then they have to replace it with some other agenda. So the Theosophical Society, which had many dukes and many princes and many of these royalty already involved because they did believe that the Messiah was coming, etc., etc. They were all looking to be enlightened by somebody else. This is the whole thing.
Yeah.
But Blavatsky had always said that, this is not a political movement, and she absolutely despised politics and knew that the politics was the control of what she called the black sorcerers.
Yeah, yeah.
She always talked about this, but the work that she wrote this in has been suppressed. Everyone has heard of her Isis Unveiled, the 2 volumes, and everybody has heard of the Secret Doctrine, the 2 volumes. But she wrote a 3rd volume to the Secret Doctrine. It's Secret Doctrine Part 3, Volume 3. And in that is when she has her most, pressing and most poignant attacks upon politics and upon the secret societies, specifically the Vatican and the Jesuits, but also the Masons and all of these other false Luciferian entities.
Yeah.
She was warning about this, and she was adamant that her society, would not have a political role and start to get involved in world politics, because she saw that all as just nonsense.
Yeah.
She saw that as an expression of people who are caught in their lower ego drives, who are not attending to the work of their soul, and they're preoccupying themselves, you see, with all of this meaningless political machinations.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is a power dynamic. It's all based on power dynamics, and this is not what this person was about. Blavatsky was about enlightenment of the human race, not about, hierarchies of control.
Yeah. So there might be a reason there right away to kind of pretty early on hijack this organization and let it afterwards represent something else, I guess. Do you know if it changed much after she died?
Yeah, I would say it radically changed, and some people even have speculated that her ill health in the end was maybe even something that was created artificially.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to read the profile of a teacher, of a master of that nature. They're hermits. They study and read all day. They're not interested in really, pushing the administrative aspect because they want to do the spiritual work.
Yeah.
So they slowly leave the administration to these other people who maybe have vested interests. And, it's like the old problem with Osho, where, or Howard Hughes, they can be poisoned. They can be poisoned maybe even physically by the people around them.
Yeah.
And slowly put into bad health so that they cannot operate, and of course, see, the trouble with a virtuous person, one of the greatest problems with a person of the light, is that they project their own light on everybody that comes into their midst. They project their own virtue on the world. And they see everybody as being just as good as they are.
Yeah.
And this leaves them wide open then for, for sabotage.
Yeah, absolutely.
So even if that didn't happen, well, then, she died, and then Annie Bessant and Leadbeater and the Webbs and all of these English Fabians that later became the Fabian Society, who were affiliated with Theosophy or used Theosophy.
Yeah.
They used it because Theosophy already had in it tremendous amount of money. A lot of dukes and princes and nobility were involved, so it was very easy from that point on to say co-opt the order and turn it to being this pusher of left-wing socialistic, philosophy.
Yeah.
It became like an embryo